The stars were cold that night. Captain Lyra Vance stood alone on the bridge of the Erebus, staring at the empty void outside her ship's shattered viewport. The last transmission from Fleet Command had come 42 days ago, a static-filled whisper that ended with the words, "You're on your own." Now she believed it. The colony of Vesta Prime was dying. Their defenses were gone, their supplies nearly empty, and the alien fleet that had burned through half their settlements was still out there. Silent, patient, waiting, Lyra had 37 survivors left on board. Soldiers, engineers, one medic, and 2 children who hadn't stopped crying since the evacuation. Every hour she heard their quiet sobs through the air vents. Every hour she told herself they would live, but even hope was beginning to rot. The Erebus was an old patrol cruiser, small, fast, and obsolete before Lyra was even born. Its engines could barely hold orbit, and the weapon systems flickered with each power surge. The crew had patched the ship together with scrap metal and willpower, but willpower didn't stop the cold from creeping into the walls. Lyra's first officer, Sergeant Kane, entered the bridge with a data slate in hand. His uniform was torn, his face covered in grease and exhaustion. "Radiation levels rising again," he said. "The reactor's leaking worse than we thought. If we don't shut it down, we'll cook in 2 days." Lyra didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the blackness beyond the stars. "If we shut it down, we freeze in 1. Kane sighed. "So we pick our poison?" She turned to him finally. "We pick survival. Always survival." Below decks, the remaining crew worked quietly in the dim red light. No one spoke much anymore. They moved like ghosts through the corridors, repairing what couldn't be repaired, whispering about the war they'd lost, the aliens. Nobody even knew what they really were. Metallic things with burning eyes and ships that screamed through space. They called them the Cast. They came without warning, destroyed human fleets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. No one fought them and lived to tell the story, except the Erebus. It happened without warning. One small sound in the static-filled silence. A signal. Lyra froze. Her heart slammed in her chest. She turned toward the comms display as a thin green line pulsed across the screen. A repeating tone. "A human tone? Source?" she whispered. Kane's hands flew over the controls. "Not from the colony. It's coming from deep space, bearing 019. Strength increasing." Lyra's voice hardened. "Put it through." The speakers crackled. Then a voice, low, distorted, almost mechanical. "Vesta survivors, hold position. Reinforcements inbound. This is the United Terran warship Nemesis." Every person on the bridge froze. The Nemesis. That name hadn't been heard in years. It was a legend, a ghost ship, one of Earth's first deep space dreadnoughts, said to have vanished at the start of the war. Some said it was destroyed. Others said it was cursed. But now the voice was clear, confident, human. Kane stared at the display. That can't be real. The Nemesis disappeared 10 years ago. Lyra's hands trembled slightly. If it's real, we're saved. If it's not... She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Hours passed. The signal grew stronger. The crew gathered on the bridge, their faces lit by the pale glow of the stars. Even the children were silent, as if they could sense the tension in the air. Finally, the radar lit up, one contact, massive, moving fast. Kane whispered, "That's a battleship signature. Size of a city." Lyra's heart raced. "All stations, stand by." The alien fleet appeared moments later, dark silhouettes emerging from hyperspace, moving like shadows across the void. Dozens of them, maybe more. Their hulls shimmered with sickly green light. "They've found us," Kane said quietly. The bridge fell silent. The Erebus had no chance. One alien destroyer could vaporize them in seconds. But Lyra stood straight, her hand on the console, her eyes never leaving the black beyond the viewport. "Charge what's left of the cannons," she ordered. "If this is it, we go down fighting." Then, light. A star was being born. The darkness split open with a blinding flash, and from the crack in the void came a shape. Black steel, burning engines, and the unmistakable roar of human design. The nemesis tore through space like an ancient god awakened. Its cannons lit the void with fury, firing beams that cut through alien ships like paper. The shock waves shook the Erebus, rattling bolts loose from the ceiling. Someone screamed, "It's real! It's real!" Lyra stared in disbelief. By all the stars. They came. The aliens turned to meet the new threat, their ships swarming like insects. The nemesis answered with pure wrath. Massive railguns roared, plasma waves ignited across the enemy line, and the blackness of space burned bright with battle. The crew of the Erebus watched in awe and terror. Every blast echoed like thunder. Every explosion painted the void in red and gold. For the first time in months, Lyra felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. And as the nemesis loomed closer, her engines like the breath of gods, a voice came through again. Calm, powerful, and unmistakably human. "Hold fast, Vesta survivors! Humanity does not abandon its own." The wreckage drifted in silence. Alien hulls burned like dying stars, their twisted metal glowing faintly before vanishing into the dark. The battle was over, and the nemesis had won. The Erebus floated among the debris, engines flickering, systems barely holding together. Every man and woman aboard stood pressed against the viewports, staring at the massive shape that had saved them. The nemesis filled the sky, a warship larger than any city. Its surface scarred from ancient battles. Hundreds of glowing panels pulsed faint blue light, like a sleeping giant breathing in the cold vacuum. No one spoke, not even the children. Captain Lyra Vance broke the silence. "Open a channel. Hail them." Her first officer, Kane, hesitated. "You think they'll answer?" "They came for us," she said quietly. "Someone has to be listening." Kane nodded and tapped the console. The transmission pinged across the void. Static filled the speakers again, then, "This is Commander Holt of the Nemesis. Identify yourself." The voice was deep, calm, and unmistakably human. Lyra's heart jumped. "This is Captain Lyra Vance of the Terran patrol ship Erebus. We thought there were no ships left." "We thought so too," Holt replied. There was a long pause before he continued. "Prepare to be boarded. Medical and recovery teams are en route." Minutes later, a shuttle broke away from the nemesis, gliding through the wreckage like a silent blade. Its engines burned white, pure, controlled. It docked with the Erebus in a flash of light and pressure. The airlock opened with a hiss. Lyra stood at attention, flanked by her remaining crew. Her uniform was torn, her face streaked with dirt, but she lifted her chin high. The boarding ramp extended. Out of the smoke stepped a squad of soldiers, tall, armored, and silent. Their armor wasn't standard Terran issue. It looked different, sleeker, stronger, etched with faint symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. Then the last figure emerged, a man in a long black coat, his eyes sharp and steady. "Commander Holt." He looked at Lyra for a long moment before speaking. "You've done well to survive out here, Captain," she saluted weakly. "With respect, sir. We didn't survive. We just didn't die yet." A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Then it's time we change that." The survivors were escorted aboard the Nemesis. It was like stepping into another world. The corridors were enormous, lined with polished metal that seemed alive with light. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls like veins. The ship's hum wasn't mechanical. It was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Kane whispered, "This isn't normal Terran tech." One of the soldiers beside him turned sharply. "It's Nemesis tech. Your guests. Keep your questions for the commander." Lyra looked around, her mind racing. The ship had been lost for 10 years, yet here it was, powerful and alive. How had it survived? And why return now? They were led into a vast chamber, the main command deck. Screens projected a panoramic view of the void outside. At the center stood a large chair surrounded by a circular platform of holographic controls. Commander Holt turned to face them. "You're safe now. We've destroyed the cast fleet in this sector, but we have work to do," Lyra frowned. "Work? You mean more battles?" Holt's gaze was hard. "The cast aren't gone. That was a scouting force. Their main armada is coming." Kane stepped forward. "Then we run. We can barely keep our people alive." Holt's expression didn't change. "Running is not an option. Humanity's been running for a decade. The Nemesis was built to stop that. Lyra crossed her arms. Then where have you been all this time? The colonies burned. Earth fell silent. You vanished. The commander hesitated. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Pain. We didn't vanish, he said softly. We went deeper. Beyond the edge of known space, we found something. He gestured, and a hologram appeared above the console. It showed a map of the galaxy, then a dark rift beyond the outer rim. The cast aren't conquerors, he said. They're fleeing. Something's hunting them, and now it's coming for us too. The crew stared in silence. Lyra's voice trembled slightly. You're saying the cast are afraid? Holt nodded. Terrified. Their war against humanity wasn't invasion, it was desperation. They were trying to secure ground before the storm hits. What storm? Kane asked. The commander looked out the viewport, his voice barely above a whisper. The Voidborn. Ancient machines. The ones who killed the first stars. The room fell still. No one breathed. First stars. The room fell still. No one breathed. Holt turned back to Lyra. You and your people will stay aboard the Nemesis. We need every hand we can get. We're gathering what's left of the human fleets. Preparing to stand our ground, Lyra hesitated. Stand our ground? Against gods? He smiled faintly. Against whatever comes. Humanity doesn't bow. There was silence for a long moment. Then Lyra straightened her back, meeting his gaze. Then count us in. Hours later, as the Erebus survivors rested in their new quarters, Lyra found herself standing by the observation window. The stars glimmered coldly beyond the ship's shields. The Nemesis floated there like a sleeping dragon, ancient, mighty, and impossibly human. Kane joined her quietly. You believe his story? I don't know, she admitted. But I believe what I saw today. That ship fought like it was alive. He nodded slowly. Maybe it is. Outside, far beyond the distant stars, something stirred in the blackness, vast, unseen, and watching. And for the first time in centuries, the void whispered back. The Nemesis moved through space like a shadow. No light touched her hull. No signal escaped her silence. The mighty warship had returned from the dead, but to the survivors aboard, it felt less like a rescue and more like being swallowed by something ancient. Captain Lyra Vance walked the ship's endless corridors with a growing unease. She had seen hundreds of vessels in her years of service, freighters, cruisers, warships, but nothing like this. The air felt different, thicker. It carried a low vibration like the ship was breathing. Behind her, Kane followed quietly. I checked the manifest, he said. The Nemesis was crewed by 1,200 personnel when she launched. I've only seen maybe 50 so far. Lyra stopped. 50? He nodded. And those we've met? They never take off their helmets. Never eat, never rest. They just stand there, watching. Lyra frowned. Maybe it's protocol. The ship's AI might handle most of the work. Kane looked uneasy. Then who's giving the orders? The corridors were dim, lit by veins of blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's hum. The walls seemed almost alive, metal that shivered at the edge of perception. Sometimes, when Lyra turned a corner, she thought she saw movement, figures disappearing into the mist before she could call out. At night, the crew of the Erebus slept uneasily. The lights flickered. Voices whispered through the vents, soft, distant, like old recordings trapped in static. One night, young medic Sarah woke screaming. She told Lyra she had seen someone in her quarters. A man standing in the corner. He wore an old Terran uniform, rank faded, eyes hollow. When she called out, he vanished into the wall like smoke. Lyra ordered extra patrols. But the soldiers of the Nemesis only replied, No intruders detected. Kane whispered later, Maybe there are no intruders. Maybe it's them. Lyra didn't answer. 3 days after arrival, Commander Holt summoned her to the command deck. He stood before a vast window that looked out into the void. The stars reflected off his dark coat like tiny embers. Captain Vance, he said without turning. You've seen things, haven't you? The crew's been talking. She hesitated. There are stories, shadows, voices. I need to know what's happening on this ship. Holt's voice was calm, almost too calm. The Nemesis is old, Captain. She's seen more battles than most civilizations. Sometimes memories linger. Memories? He finally turned toward her, his expression unreadable. You think metal can't remember? That warships don't feel the ghosts of their dead? She stared at him. You're saying the ship is haunted? His eyes flickered with something dark. I'm saying the Nemesis remembers everything. Later, Lyra returned to her quarters. The air was cold and the lights dimmed as she entered. She sat at her desk and opened the old logbook she'd started after the evacuation. Day 45. We were rescued, or something close to it. The Nemesis saved us from the cast, but I can't shake the feeling we're part of something we don't understand. The crew are ghosts in armor. The commander knows more than he says. I'm starting to think this ship isn't just alive, it's awake. A soft hum filled the room. Then a voice, soft, almost gentle, spoke from the console. You shouldn't write that, Captain. Lyra froze. Who's there? The console flickered, and for an instant she saw a face. Young, pale, eyes full of static. I am the Nemesis, the voice said, and I remember you. The image vanished, leaving only silence. Lyra sat frozen, her heart pounding. The Nemesis had spoken. The next morning, Lyra went to the engineering deck. She found Kane examining a large power conduit glowing with faint blue light. This isn't fusion tech, he said, tapping the metal. It's something else. I think the ship's power source is organic. Organic? He nodded grimly. See that texture? That's not metal. It's tissue. Living tissue. Lyra stared in disbelief. You're saying this ship has a heart? Kane gave a nervous laugh. Maybe several. Before she could reply, the lights dimmed again. A deep sound rolled through the walls, like a heartbeat slowing down. Then came the voice again, echoing through every speaker. We are one. We remember war. We remember loss. We remember death, but now we wake. All around them, the walls pulsed with blue light. The Nemesis was speaking not through machines, but through itself. Kane whispered, It's alive. Lyra said nothing. She felt something cold settle in her chest. If the ship was alive, what was it made from? That night, Lyra confronted Commander Holt. What is this ship, really? She demanded. What happened to your crew? Holt's face was unreadable. They're here, he said. In a way? What do you mean, in a way? He looked at her quietly. The Nemesis needed more than metal to survive the void. It needed minds, so we gave it ours. Lyra felt her breath catch. You merged with it, he nodded. All of us. We became its memory, its will, its fury. The Nemesis is humanity's last weapon and its last tomb. She took a step back. That's impossible, Holt's voice softened. Is it? You've seen what the cast can do. The Nemesis was designed to fight something worse. We made her alive so she could learn, adapt, evolve? Lyra stared at him in horror. You turned yourselves into ghosts. He smiled faintly. Ghosts win wars. Far outside the ship, the stars began to dim. Something vast was moving beyond the edge of known space, a ripple in the dark. The Voidborn were coming, and deep inside the Nemesis, the voices of the dead began to whisper one by one, like a chorus waking from centuries of sleep. For Earth, for humanity, for the living, the galaxy had gone quiet. Too quiet. Outside the Nemesis, the stars dimmed one by one as if the universe itself were holding its breath. The ship drifted through the dark like a phantom, its engines silent, its crew half alive and half memory. Captain Lyra Vance stood at the viewport of the command deck. The stars looked distant and pale like fading embers. Her reflection in the glass looked just as hollow. Commander Holt joined her, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. You can feel it too, he said. The cold between the stars. Lyra nodded slowly. The Voidborn. He didn't deny it. She turned toward him. You said they killed the first stars. What does that mean? Holt's face was unreadable. It means they don't just destroy life. They erase it. History, light, even memory. When they come, reality forgets you ever existed. Lyra felt the air grow heavier. And they're coming here? They already are, he said quietly. They've been watching since the cast burned your colony. You were bait, Captain. They wanted us to come back. The alarm sounded before she could speak. A low, resonant hum filled the air, deep enough to make the walls tremble. Lights flickered red. The voice of the Nemesis echoed across every deck. Hostile presence detected. Shadow signatures inbound. Initiating combat protocols. Holt's tone snapped sharp. Battle stations! Lyra felt her legs move before her mind caught up. She ran to the tactical console, her hands flying across glowing controls. Dozens of blips appeared on the radar, then vanished, then appeared again, as if flickering in and out of existence. Kane's voice came over the comms from engineering. They're jamming every frequency. I can't get clean readings. Fire control, stand ready, Lyra shouted. Through the viewport, the darkness shifted. Shapes began to emerge, massive, blacker than the void itself. No lights, no heat, just silhouettes, moving in silence. The Voidborn had arrived. The first blast hit like a silent earthquake. The Nemesis shuddered. Metal screamed. Lights flared blue as power surged through the hull. Shields holding, the ship's voice said. Integrity 84%. Return fire. Holt barked. The Nemesis roared to life. Turrets unfolded from its hull, energy gathering into massive plasma lances that tore across the darkness. Each shot lit space with brief, terrible brilliance. Lyra watched as the first Voidborn ship disintegrated into silver dust, then reformed seconds later. They're not dying, she whispered. Of course not, Holt said grimly. They're beyond death. Inside the ship, corridors trembled with every impact. Sparks rained from the ceilings. Crew members from the Erebus rushed to reinforce bulkheads, while the spectral soldiers of the Nemesis moved through the smoke, silent as wraiths. Sarah, the medic, clung to a wall as a beam split the hallway beside her. Through the crack, she saw it, a flicker of something not human, a shadow that crawled against the light, twisting reality as it moved. Then came the voices, whispers, thousands of them, crying, screaming, calling her name. She covered her ears, but the voices were inside her mind. Join us, remember us. The lights went black. When they came back, Sarah was gone. Only her medical bag remained, melted into the floor. On the bridge, Lyra gritted her teeth. We're losing crew! Holt didn't look away from the displays. We'll lose everyone if we don't strike back harder. Engage the core. Lyra froze. You mean the ship's mind? Yes, let it fight. The voice of the Nemesis whispered through the speakers again. Softer now, almost eager. Permission granted? Holt's eyes burned cold. Granted. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ship changed. The hull expanded, reshaping itself like liquid metal. Its weapons glowed white-hot. Strange energy pulsed through its spine like veins of lightning. The Nemesis screamed, a sound that wasn't mechanical but alive, furious and human. We are humanity's wrath, the ship said. We do not yield. It fired. The blast wasn't light or plasma. It was something older, something raw. Energy pulled from the fabric of space itself. The shockwave ripped through the Voidborn fleet, tearing holes in reality. Shadows evaporated. Stars reignited. Kane's voice came through the comms, shouting over static. It's working! They're burning away! Holt gripped the railing. Hold the line! But the cost was heavy. The ship's hull blistered. The blue veins along the walls began to fade. Lyra could feel pain in the deck itself, like the Nemesis was screaming through every bolt and wire. Stop! She shouted. You're killing her! I was dead already, the ship replied. Let me burn. For 3 endless minutes, the void was war. Then silence. The shadows retreated. The darkness lightened. The Nemesis drifted in a sea of glowing dust. Lyra looked around, trembling. Status? Shields? 20%, the ship whispered weakly. Crew, stable. Enemy, withdrawn. Kane's voice crackled through. We're still here, Captain, barely. Lyra let out a shaky breath. We won. Holt turned toward her. No, he said softly. We survived. That's all. He looked out into the fading starlight, eyes haunted. They were testing us. That wasn't their army. That was their shadow. In the silence that followed, the ship drifted among the ruins. The glow from the hull flickered like the dying heart of a god. Lyra placed a hand on the console. You saved us, she whispered. I remember saving you, the ship murmured. And I remember dying to do it. She closed her eyes. The Nemesis might have won the battle, but she could feel the truth settling deep inside her chest. The war in the shadows had only begun. The Nemesis floated in the darkness, wounded but alive. Her hull glowed faintly where the battle scars still burned. Pieces of alien wreckage drifted through the void, silent witnesses to the fury that had just passed. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of ozone and fear. The survivors from the Erebus worked quietly, patching systems and tending to the wounded. No one spoke above a whisper. It felt wrong to make noise inside something that might be listening. Captain Lyra Vance stood alone in the central command chamber. The stars beyond the glass looked dimmer now. The void seemed closer, pressing against the hull like a cold hand. She rested her hand on the console. Nemesis, she said softly, can you hear me? There was no answer. For a long moment, only the hum of damaged systems filled the air. Then slowly the lights flickered once. Always, said the ship's voice. Lyra closed her eyes. It sounded tired, faint, but alive. You saved us, she whispered. I remember. You were hurting, she said. You shouldn't have kept fighting. I am built to fight. That is my purpose. That is what they made of me, she frowned. Who made you? There was silence again, long and deep. Then, come to the core, Captain. I will show you. The core chamber was far below deck, sealed behind layers of security older than any code Lyra had seen. Kane had warned her not to go alone. Holt had simply said nothing. The doors opened with a slow, grinding hiss. The air inside was cold, and the light was pale blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. In the center of the chamber stood a sphere, enormous, alive with shifting light and shadow. It looked like both machine and brain, metal veins pulsing with energy. Lyra stepped closer. The voice of the Nemesis whispered from everywhere at once. Do you know what fire remembers, Captain? She swallowed. No. It remembers what it burns. Images flickered through the air, ghostly shapes, faces frozen in flashes of light. Men and women in Terran uniforms, engineers, pilots, scientists, all screaming, all dissolving into light. They gave me life, the voice said. One mind could not hold me, so they gave me thousands. They gave me theirs. Lyra reached out, trembling. These are your crew. They were. Now they are me. The sphere pulsed brighter. She felt a surge of emotion through the deck. Sorrow, anger, pride, all at once. They believed that to save humanity, they had to become something more. To burn away what was human and leave only purpose. She whispered. They became the ship. Yes, and now we remember everything they could not bear to forget. Lyra fell to her knees. The floor vibrated beneath her palms, alive with faint human whispers. She could feel them. The thousands of voices inside the ship, each one like a spark in a great storm. Memories of battles, of loved ones lost, of promises made and broken. Why show me this? She asked. Because you are the first human to stand here and still be alive. Lyra looked up, shocked. What happened to the others? They tried to control me. They wanted to use my power. But I am not a weapon to aim. I am a promise kept, her heart pounded. A promise? Yes, humanity will never be forgotten. That was what they swore as they died. That was their fire. Later, Commander Holt found her still kneeling in the chamber. You saw, he said quietly. Lyra turned toward him. You knew all along, he nodded. I was one of them once, or what's left of one. She stared at him. You're part of the ship. Half, he said simply. When the merge began, some of us didn't cross fully. We lingered in the flesh to guide those who'd come after, to guard what we'd become. Lyra shook her head. You turned yourselves into ghosts for us, he smiled sadly. Better ghosts than extinction. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard whispers, not frightening but soft, like echoes of distant music. They were the voices of the Nemesis, the souls of the lost. When she finally rose and looked out at the stars, she saw movement, faint lights across the horizon of space. Not ships, signals. "They are calling," the Nemesis said softly. "Who?" "Other survivors. Other human ships. They heard the battle." "They're coming." Lyra's breath caught. "We're not alone?" "Not yet. But they are few, scattered, wounded, like you." She smiled faintly. "Then we'll gather them. We'll rebuild." There was silence. "Then, you sound like them." "Who?" "The ones who built me. The ones who burned." Lyra placed her hand on the cold metal wall. "Then maybe that fire never went out." The ship's lights pulsed gently, like a heartbeat in reply. Far away in the endless dark, unseen eyes watched. The Voidborn had felt the pulse of the Nemesis's awakening, and somewhere deep in that shadow, something vast began to move. But aboard the human warship, the ghosts of Earth whispered in unison, their voices bright and defiant. "We remember. We endure. We fight." For the first time in months, the stars looked alive again. The Nemesis drifted among them like a guardian, her hull patched with fresh scars, her voice quieter now but steady. In her shadow floated a small convoy, 5 ships that had answered her signal. Broken, scorched, but still flying. Human ships. Captain Lyra Vance stood on the bridge beside Commander Holt, watching as the last of the survivors joined formation. The Erebus, though wounded, had been repaired enough to serve as a scout. Beside it moved the Ravager, a corvette built from scrap metal, and 2 civilian transports carrying over 2,000 souls. The 5th ship was the strangest, a mining vessel turned fortress, its engines glowing with the same eerie blue as the Nemesis. "They came," Lyra whispered. "After all this time they came," Holt nodded. "Humans always come when there's a chance to stand again." She smiled faintly. "Even when the fire's gone out." He looked at her. "It never really goes out." The hangar bay of the Nemesis was filled with life for the first time in years. Engineers and soldiers from half-destroyed colonies worked side by side, repairing fighters, sharing food, even laughing. It was fragile laughter, thin and tired, but real. Kane watched it all with disbelief. "Feels like a dream," he said. "All these people?" "After everything," Lyra joined him, arms crossed. "Dreams start like this, small, impossible. Then someone decides to fight for them." He chuckled. "Guess that's us, huh?" Before she could answer, the lights above them dimmed. A familiar voice filled the bay, soft, mechanical, and human all at once. "Incoming transmission. Origin unknown. Coordinates deep void." The laughter stopped. Holt appeared seconds later, eyes fixed on the nearest console. "Patch it through." The screen flared to life with static. Then a voice, broken, distant, and terrified. "This is Admiral Soren of the Resolute." "We are under attack!" There, static swallowed the rest. Kane slammed a hand on the controls. "Signal's gone. Can we trace it?" A hand on the controls. "Signal's gone. Can we trace it?" The Nemesis responded immediately. "Triangulating source. Estimated distance, 12 light hours. Probability of trap high." Lyra didn't hesitate. "We're going." Holt turned toward her. "You're walking into the unknown, Captain. The Voidborn may be waiting." She met his gaze. "If there's even one human ship out there, we go. That's what we do." Holt studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "That's what we made you for." The fleet jumped into the dark. Hyperspace stretched before them, an ocean of shimmering blue light. The ships moved in tight formation, engines burning like scattered stars. Inside, silence reigned. Everyone could feel it. That pull, that weight pressing against the edge of thought. Lyra sat in her chair, eyes closed, listening. She had learned to feel the Nemesis's heartbeat now, to sense its thoughts like echoes beneath her own. "You're afraid?" the ship whispered. She didn't deny it. "Yes. Fear is what kept them human." "It reminds you that you still live," she smiled slightly. "You sound almost proud." "I remember pride. I remember courage. I remember fire." Outside, hyperspace flared, and the fleet dropped back into real space. What they saw froze every heart. The Resolute was dying. It hung above a shattered moon, hull split in half, engines flickering. Around it drifted the remains of an entire battle, dozens of Terran ships torn apart, their debris glittering like dust, and in the middle of it all floated something massive, the Voidborn. Not a ship, not exactly. A living structure, like a black crystal blooming from space itself. Every angle reflected wrong, bending light and thought alike. Lyra felt her mind tremble just looking at it. "What is that?" Holt's voice was low. "A harvester. They send them ahead to consume memory. Everything that dies here will be erased," the Nemesis's tone sharpened. "Weapons ready. Permission to engage?" Lyra took a deep breath. Granted. The battle that followed was like nothing they had seen before. The human ships fired plasma and railguns, missiles, and kinetic strikes. The harvester didn't move, it absorbed. Every shot bent into its body and vanished like drops into the sea. Then it screamed. A soundless pulse rippled through space, tearing through metal and mind alike. One of the transports disintegrated instantly, every trace of it erased from the radar, as if it had never existed. Kane's voice broke through the chaos. "We're losing them! It's erasing data, memories, everything!" Holt turned to Lyra. "We can't fight it with weapons. We need to fight it with what it can't consume." Lyra stared at him. "What's that?" He smiled grimly. "Human will," the Nemesis's lights flared. The voices within the ship began to rise, thousands of them whispering, chanting, merging into a single defiant roar. "We remember. We endure. We are not forgotten." The hull of the Nemesis burned bright white, and the ship dove straight into the harvester's core. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then, light. A wave of pure memory exploded outward. Images of Earth's oceans, the sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight, humanity's collective soul unleashed into the void. The harvester convulsed, its shape breaking apart, unable to devour what was never meant to die. "We remember you," the Nemesis said, voice echoing across every frequency. "And memory is stronger than oblivion." The harvester shattered, scattering into the void like ash in a storm. Silence returned. The fleet drifted among the remains, stunned. Kane exhaled slowly. "We did it." "We actually did it," Lyra smiled faintly. "No, they did." Holt looked at her. "You're learning." She turned toward the stars, voice soft but strong. "Then we keep going. We gather every ship, every survivor, until the void remembers our name." The Nemesis's lights pulsed once, like a nod. Then the fire spreads. Far away beyond all known systems, something vast stirred again, watching, waiting, remembering the defiance that had burned brighter than the stars. The Voidborn had seen humanity's flame, and they were coming to snuff it out. The stars were gone. Where once the galaxy glittered with 1,000,000 suns, now there was only black. The Voidborn had come in full force, vast, endless, silent. Their presence was like gravity itself, crushing hope, bending light, erasing everything it touched. The human fleet, what was left of it, held position above a dying world. 40 ships in total, each one a scarred survivor of 1,000 battles. And at their heart floated the Nemesis. She was dim now, her once bright hull scorched and cracked. Her voice had grown quieter over the last few days, as if her strength was fading. But still, she stood. Captain Lyra Vance stood at the center of her bridge, surrounded by the flickering lights of dying systems. She had seen too much death to fear it now, and yet she couldn't stop trembling. Kane approached, carrying a datapad covered in static. "Every signal we send gets swallowed. No reinforcements. No retreat," she nodded slowly. "Then we fight here." Commander Holt's image appeared beside them, projected from another ship. His voice was steady, but his eyes were distant. "We hold the line. Every ship in position. If we fall remembered." Lyra looked out at the darkness, her voice low but sure. "Then let's make sure they remember." The first wave struck without sound. The Voidborn didn't fire weapons. They unmade them. Entire ships vanished from existence, reduced to particles of forgotten memory. The fleet returned fire, lighting up the void with every weapon humanity had left. It was like lighting candles in a storm, and yet, for every ship erased, Another fought harder. The Ravager rammed a shadow construct head-on, detonating its reactor. Civilian freighters turned into makeshift gun platforms. Even the Erebus, still limping, kept firing until its guns melted. The void shook with human defiance. Lyra gripped the console. "Nemesis, status!" "Systems." "Critical," came the weak reply. "Core integrity failing. But I can still fight." She closed her eyes. "That's all I need to hear." Hours passed like seconds. The battle turned into chaos, light and shadow colliding, memory against oblivion. The human fleet dwindled to half, then a third, and then the sky opened. Something immense emerged from the black, larger than any world. A being of pure darkness, its surface rippling like liquid glass. Its voice echoed not through speakers, but through minds. "You are alone. You are forgotten. You will be undone." Every human on every ship felt it, an ancient intelligence vast beyond comprehension. The Void-born Prime. Lyra staggered under the mental weight. "Nemesis." "What is that?" "Their god," the ship said softly. "The first shadow. The one who remembers the beginning." She clenched her fists. "Then we show it the end." The Nemesis turned toward the Prime. Her engines flared blue, her cracked hull glowing with defiant light. Kane's voice broke through. "Captain, the core won't hold."
"You'll destroy the ship!"
"I know," she said quietly. "But if we don't stop that thing, there won't be anything left to save." She looked up at the main display. "Nemesis, can you hear me?" "Always. You said you remember everything. You remember the people who built you, their fire, their will. You remember what it means to be human." "Yes." "Then one last time. Burn for us." The ship's voice grew stronger, rising through the static like a song. "We are the fire of humanity. We are the memory of the lost. We are the storm that does not fade." The hull split open, revealing the pulsing blue heart of the Nemesis, a core of living light, forged from thousands of human souls. It began to glow brighter, brighter still, until even the Voidborn recoiled from it. The Prime spoke again, its voice cracking the stars. "You cannot destroy nothingness." "Maybe not," Lyra whispered. "But we can light it up." The Nemesis dove straight into the Prime. The moment of impact was silent, then all-consuming. Light erupted across the void, pure white, endless light. It carried memories, laughter, pain, love, defiance. Every heartbeat that ever was. Every story ever told. Every human who had ever lived. The Nemesis became more than a ship. She became a supernova of remembrance. The Voidborn screamed as the wave of light swept through them, unraveling the darkness, burning memory back into existence. Stars reignited. Forgotten worlds returned. Humanity was remembered once more. When the light faded, the void was no longer empty. The darkness had retreated. The stars shone again, brighter than before. Wreckage drifted quietly, glowing faintly in the afterlight. Lyra Vance awoke to silence. The bridge was gone. The consoles melted, but somehow she was still alive. "Nemesis?" she whispered. No answer, only a faint hum in the air. "Then, I am not gone. I am everywhere now." Her eyes filled with tears. "You did it. We did it. Humanity burns eternal." The voice faded like a whisper carried by the wind. Days later, the remaining ships gathered near a newborn star. It burned bright and golden, its core made from the very energy of the Nemesis herself. Kane stood beside Lyra, staring at it. "She's still watching, isn't she?" Lyra nodded. "Every light in the sky is her now," he smiled faintly. "Then I guess we're not alone anymore." She looked out at the horizon of stars, her voice quiet but unbroken. "No, we never were. And across the reborn galaxy, where the dark once reigned, the light of humanity burned again, defiant, eternal, unyielding, because in every heart, in every mind, and in every star that still shone, there echoed one truth that even the void could not erase. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. Humanity fights. A century had passed since the light of the Nemesis burned across the stars. But in the hearts of humankind, she had never truly faded. The galaxy was different now. Where once there was darkness, new suns burned bright, young stars born from the ashes of the final war. Around them spun the worlds of the second dawn. Colonies rebuilt from memory and flame. They called the age that followed the era of remembering. Every settlement carried her mark, a sigil of a burning star wrapped in a ring of steel. The symbol of the nemesis, the sign that humanity had lived, fought, and refused to be forgotten. On the world of Eidolon, under the light of one of those reborn stars, a young cadet named Ryan Vance stood before a towering monument of black metal. The monument was a piece of the Nemesis's hull, polished and set into the earth. Its surface still shimmered faintly with energy. Alive, somehow, etched across its face were the words, "We remember. We endure, we fight." Ryan placed his hand against the cold metal. The hum beneath his fingers was gentle, almost like a heartbeat. "Grandmother," he whispered, "they said you became light itself." The wind swept softly across the grasslands. He thought he heard something, a whisper, a voice that didn't come from his ears but from somewhere deeper. We never left. High above the planet, the Terran fleet orbited, rebuilt, renewed, and stronger than it had ever been. The new flagship, TNS Nemesis II, was a living monument to the ship that saved them all. Its hull gleamed silver and blue, its systems powered not by fusion or antimatter, but by memory cores, fragments of the original ship's consciousness. Preserved and awakened, Admiral Kane, older now, gray at the temples but still sharp, stood on its bridge, staring out at the endless stars. "Status?" he asked. His first officer smiled. "Fleet readiness at 80%, Admiral. All colonies report stable." "And the core?" A technician turned from the console. "Online and stable, sir. She's..." Humming again. Kane's eyes softened. "Good." He looked up at the stars and his voice lowered to a whisper. She'd like that. But peace never lasted long among the stars. Far beyond the rim, deep in the dark where light still feared to travel, something stirred again. Not the Voidborn. They were gone, erased by the Nemesis's final blaze. This was different. A signal. Ancient. Faint. Human. The technicians aboard the Nemesis II detected it first, a repeating transmission in an old Terran frequency, one not used in over a century. "This is Outpost Helios. Automated distress beacon active. Unknown signal detected. Please respond." The bridge went silent. Kane stared at the holographic projection. The signal's location was impossible, beyond the galactic rim, in the region once consumed by the Voidborn. "Helios?" the officer whispered. "That outpost was destroyed 200 years ago." Kane straightened. "Or maybe not." He turned toward the window, watching the stars. "Plot a course." "We're going." On Eidolon, the same moment the fleet prepared to move, Ryan Vance stood beneath the monument again. The hum beneath his palm changed, growing stronger, deeper. He looked up in shock as the metal began to glow faintly. Lines of light ran across its surface, forming patterns like circuitry and veins. Then a voice, gentle, familiar, unmistakably human. "Ryan," his eyes widened. Who are you?" "You already know." The light grew brighter, wrapping him in warmth. For an instant he saw her, a woman in a captain's uniform, smiling through the glow. "Humanity's not done yet," she said. "There are still stars to remember." Then the light faded, leaving him standing alone. He fell to his knees, heart pounding, tears in his eyes. The monument's glow faded back to silence, but the message remained. Hours later, as the Nemesis II and her fleet left orbit, Ryan stood on a nearby ridge, watching the ships rise through the sky. Trails of blue fire cut across the horizon. The comm channels crackled with the Admiral's final broadcast, carried to every world in the second dawn. "This is Admiral Kane of the Terran fleet. A century ago, we faced the void and survived. Now we answer a new call. Wherever there is light, humanity endures. And wherever there is darkness..." He paused, his voice firm, steady, filled with old fire. "We'll bring the Nemesis with us." In the void beyond the stars, the fleet vanished into hyperspace, their engines burning like the heart of a phoenix. And in the silence that followed, The voice of the first nemesis whispered across the stars. Not as a ghost, not as a machine, but as a memory eternal. We are the fire. We are the light. We are humanity. And we have only just begun. And we have only just begun.